Hello, ladies and gentlemen. It is I, Emily Sophia, aka Mighty Sophia, here to break down for you guys the latest episode of Bates Motel. We are on season 4, episode 4, Lights of Winter, which almost kind of sounds like it's supposed to be a Game of Thrones episode title, perhaps, but no, that is not the case. So spoiler alert, as I shall in fact be bearing all in this review. And I am going to say it before you all comment, I am not wearing any eye makeup, which may actually be a first for one of my reviews, which is crazy because I have been making these for a couple of years now, so feast your eyes on my unpainted face. I do have lip gloss on, but that's another matter entirely, so I'm just putting it out there. I'm not wearing makeup. Now we shall move on. So this week's episode took us on a particularly scintillating and spicy little adventure to from the asylum to the strip club. You know, there and back again. Certainly not the trajectory that I would have expected for this week's episode. But good Lord, was it quite entertaining getting there, and definitely gives us some very bizarre insights into the unfolding persona of Mother. She is certainly, as Norman is fluctuating in his own psychological state, so too is Mother changing and mutating and warping in her own ways, because I always think back to what I believe was the very first time that we saw her back in the day, and she, in the Miss Watson era, she had this black dress on with this high collar and her hair pinned back. And so she was this very chaste, puritanical looking woman. And now here she is, taking on the full appearance of Norma Bates. But she's in the VIP lounge with Athena getting her bi-curiousness on. So quite a few layers to Mother, that's for freaking sure. And yeah, it was bizarre. It was experimental. It's definitely playing up just how perverted Norman's mental state has become. It's gotten to a point where he and Mother and Norma and Norman are all kind of one in the same, sort of on this rotating stall of a door. He's riding this carousel in his own mind, and every once in a while Mother pops up, which, I mean, it makes sense that she would at a strip club of all places, because, you know, if the Freudian stuff is going to come out to play, it's going to come out to play at the landing strip, I would dare say. But yeah, super, super crazy and weird. And this is really just the tip of the iceberg. I think Mother is going to be hanging out with us quite a bit more in the days to come, in the not too distant future. In fact, I think that I did spy with my little eye in the preview for next week a certain exposed Norma/Mother with the back of her dress undone. So I do suspect that things are getting ready to escalate. But this was also an interesting episode for Norman because we see that he actually returns to a place of recognizing his mental illness. He, in fact, experiences a blackout over the course of escaping from the institution with Julian. And so it's after all of that comes to pass and he puts on his fabulous black boa as Mother and gets a little bit experimental. All this comes to pass. He finds himself on the other side of it and is like, wait, what the actual crap? Okay. So he's finally backing down from this whole Norma mother murder conspiracy angle that he was trying to work at the top of the hour. At which point he was so adamantly insistent that there is nothing wrong with him. I am going to walk right out this door. I am Norman Bates. I have a motel to run. I don't know what you're doing for a living, but I'm not working here. I mean, he was like, just so, so naive and yet so confident and so frustrated. Just such a crazy kaleidoscope of emotions and beliefs are going on in Norman's mind. I mean, I can just imagine taking his brain and looking through it, like one of those little kaleidoscope viewfinders, and you twist it and you twist it, and just everything is it makes you think of those like ink blot tests that they would, like all those psychiatric evaluation tropes, like, look at all these crazy pictures, what do you see? Like, this is kind of Norman's current state. He is in this kaleidoscope world. He is on this carousel of changing personalities, and finally things come to a head at the end of the episode as he realizes, wait a minute, I'm not in control. It's not just something wrong with Norma, with my mother. There's something wrong with me. And it all kind of comes back to a place in which we have seen Norman before in the far distant past, because this season has primarily hinged on Norman's belief that he and Mother are completely separate entities, and that Mother is Norma, is a killer. And so now all of that breaks down with his escape, and as he gets out into the world, and as all the gears in his mind are twisted, and he's, much like the night of Miss Watson's death, he's unable to recall what even occurred at the strip club and how he got his fabulous style on, I like that the doctor just let him keep his little feather boa on. So cute. But yeah, once again, hats off to Freddie Highmore for playing this role to perfection as we see Norman enter this seemingly implausible situation. I mean, you think back to the Psycho era, the original concoction of Alfred Hitchcock's, and it's like, wait, Norman freaking Bates in a strip club, what are we actually doing here? How are we going to progress the story in this way? But it works. It's crazy, it's weird, it's confusing, but at the same time, it makes sense that Mother could come out in this way. It's certainly a different kind of light that she's painted in this time around, but it's really interesting because you think to yourself, does Norman kind of get outside of himself at that point? Like, because he's dressing up and he wants to look like a radiant woman at that point, and so clearly he's thinking that he's Mother, but then it's like with the whole part with Mother kissing Athena, that is really bugging out my brain, because it's like, does he kind of separate himself and like see this unfolding? Like, is it some kind of erotic thing for him? Like, there's a lot of different ways that you could tackle this scene and break it down, but I'm gonna leave the rest of that up to you guys, because lots of fun to be had. So now I think we're at a point where Norman is finally willing to try to receive treatment from Dr. Andrews, I think it is. I don't know. Nice fellow. Very patient, long-suffering dude. And now he is finally there as Norman's realizing, oh, crap, what's going on with me? With me, of all people. After going on this whole tirade against Mother. But little does he know what Norma is actually up to in her life. Now, this season has been strange also in the sense that we see Norma and Norman separated for the longest amount of time that they've ever been apart from each other. And I just know that when the show brings them back together, it is going to be a powder keg Freudian proportions, and Norma is inevitably going to slip up. She's not going to be able to keep up the facade of her singleness for very long, especially since, whoopsie daisy, she is actually falling in love with the financial means by which she is keeping Norman in this well-to-do mental health establishment. Yes, Norma and Romero are actually having a fully fledged thing, you know? With the whole legally wed business, they're actually pretty interested in each other now. So that's a problem. It doesn't seem like a problem, of course, because everybody is trying to reaffirm that Norma is doing the right thing, that Norman is safe, that she is in a good way. And we actually see, I think that this episode captures the highest quantity of Norma Bates smiles that I have ever seen of any episode in the show so far. You know, as she's watching Alex eat his breakfast, and they, go and have hot toddies and funnel cake in the snowy night, and she even gets to, as she's been connecting with Dylan, she gets to see Emma. Emma wants to whisk Dylan away to the magical lands of Seattle, where her lungs can further, or she can, get used to her lungs and all that healing process that's taking place. Now I'm trying to figure out if the show actually wants Dylan and Emma to, survive. Because it almost seems like it does. And I would like to think that maybe somebody besides Norman outlives Bates Motel, but who are we to say? And clearly Dylan is trying to get his foot out of the weed business door in White Pine Bay, but it's possible that his that closing plot line is actually going to kind of get reopened as all the Bob Paris stuff is going down, which, all of that is just kind of on the periphery for me. I don't really find it all that particularly fascinating. I think the show is just trying to stress the fact that there are so many forces that are fighting against Alex and Norma's joint happiness, okay? That's really what all of this Bob Paris business is driving home for me, and then the whole thing with, what's-her-face? Catherine? Is that her name? Or Rebecca, I think was the name of the chick who has had a past with Romero and a past with Bob and laundering his cash. And then whoopsie daisy, it turns out that Romero has the safety deposit box key in the basement and there are problems. So it's like, apparently the impending doom that accompanies Norman is not the only odd that this fledgling couple is up against, but they're trying to be happy, which is the worst possible thing that they could do for their own well-being. Ain't that the beauty of life, folks? But yeah, there is of course one moment where Norma is preparing to go out, and we see her looking in the mirror, and then she sees the picture of Norman. I thought she was going to pick it up and, turn it around, so it's like, hey, don't look at me. I got my shirt undone. But she gazes upon that for a tender moment with this questioning and this uneasiness. And whoa, baby, is all of that going to come to a head very soon. So I would love to hear the rest of your thoughts about this episode. I think that the rest of the season from here on out is going to be incredibly strong. That is what I am feeling at this point. But I'm going to leave the rest of the dialogue to you guys, and any comments I can reply to as well. Love you guys so much. Take care of yourselves, and as always, I'll be back before you know it.